So we have 3 episodes remaining of Psychopath Season 3, and it really does feel like the way this season is functioning is actually quite interesting. I really like how each arc, it almost feels like a movie, as if you're watching a feature-length film. Sometimes it feels like an extended, like Lord of the Rings extended cut that's 3 hours long, but still, it's a nice, digestible movie story, and it works by itself to feel like it was really intriguing. But now that we're 5 weeks in, you can really tell that even though those cases stand tall by themselves as standalone stories, it also is a larger, connected tale about these foxes and how there's a criminal syndicate group that can cloud their hue so well, commit atrocities, and pass by as some of the purest people in the general world. That's what I'm really liking, is how it both functions as a television series, a larger connected story as everyone's typically used to, but each little case that we dive into feels like a standalone movie. And that's something that you don't see too often, and the double length of the episodes definitely helps with this flow that I don't think normal length episode could really get across, because if this was 16 standard length episodes, the flow would just feel so broken. So I gotta give major props to not only finding a time slot in Japan so they could air it and actually have the double length run, but also the studio for taking on probably a risky format, as, you know, it'd be easier and more profitable, I imagine, if you would have more episodes to air. But, I mean, you could sell more Blu-rays and DVDs, as they only sell, like, I think 2 episodes per disc or something in Japan, so I'm really enjoying it, I have to say. And this episode, no exception to last week, amazing. Honestly, the only thing that I could see myself maybe having issues with by the time this series wraps up with episode 8 is if they don't give me any sort of details with the mentalist ability. I don't need like super complex details, but I would like to see, is there something that was enhanced with people? Are they going to give me at least one line of dialogue to really go into how it works, or are they going to leave it just more mysterious and we don't know? And even if they don't go into his ability, that won't be enough of an issue to ruin my enjoyment for this series, because if Babylon wasn't airing this season, this would be my anime of the season. That's how much I'm enjoying Psychopaths 3. It's on par with the first season for me. This story about how it starts off with continuing almost the politician angle, where we have our new leader and she's basically imposing this like religious zone where different faiths can basically live there in harmony, but there's obviously opposing sides saying it's more just a political game. She's trying to just play politics where, you know, forcing people of certain religions and beliefs in one location is not what they wanted. And then, of course, we get a suicide bomber, and that kind of spirals this entire story out of control. I just like how we obviously have the connection from the previous arcs, but then you get this new angle with organized religion and how some of them are saying that in the future, you know, the churches are going to be the ones holding the dominators just as much as the enforcement agencies already are. And that's a terrifying thought. When we had religions controlling kings and it was all in the name of the Lord, right? There is a lot of atrocities committed under the name of God, right? And there's nothing wrong with organized religion. I'm actually all for people having their own beliefs, but when it gets imposed into governments, that's where it gets very iffy for me. And I thought the topic of, especially coming from Arta, I wasn't expecting him to basically bring up the concept of faith and how he's not really saying one thing or the other. He's kind of just saying that this is why people are scared of religion, but faith isn't that simple, right? There's so many people who will just practice religion, they don't follow it like a cult, they just believe because they want to have that spiritual salvation, and that in return gives them peace of mind, and in the world of Psychopaths, that clears their hues. And when you see all of the leaders of the different religious organizations that we get introduced to, they all have perfect hues. And obviously, we know, because we got that bird's eye view, we know that there are these foxes who are a criminal syndicate, and they basically walk among men and no one knows that they are latent criminals, right? They do all these horrible things. They organize suicide bombers, they organize mass murder, right? There's all these bad things happening, and they can just walk down the street, and even if a dominator is pointed at them, they're not going to get lethal enforcement. They're not even going to get the taser or things like that. This episode just kind of felt like almost maximum chaos, but with a very calming presence is how I'd put it. Like, we learned that there was 5 basically like stomach bombs made. It's kind of insane that you like drug up hypnosis, something to just 5 different people. They don't even know who they are, and they basically have surgery so they have a bomb, and they're just being sent to different places, trying to kill the new leader, but she was a hologram, so she didn't get hurt. killing someone who was in terminal cancer. Why would you kill someone who has terminal cancer? Probably didn't want him to speak. 3 bombs left, and we know it's going to only get crazier and more brutal. And depending on how successful they are, a lot of innocents could be in the crossfire. There's just so much to this story that it feels so interesting as just this like religious political story that by itself, if this was just a movie that Psycho Pass, the franchise, was dropping, we're like, oh, cool, a 2.5 hour film of Psycho Pass, this is an interesting case, we love the characters. But the fact that it's actually flowing in an 8-episode anime season, all double-length episodes, it just feels like it's working in such harmony, in such a weird but very fascinating way, and I'd love to see more anime kind of take note from what Psycho Pass 3 is doing, because you should make an episode as long or as short as it needs to be. There's so many anime that they run a full 20 minutes, but they really only needed 12 minutes or 15 minutes to get their message across. But then there's so many that you're like, man, I really wish this was 30, 40, even 60 minutes in length, because you didn't want that flow to be broken. And Psycho Pass 3 is really flexing its writing capabilities, showing why its episode length and why its story in general needed 8 episodes, both 45-ish minutes each. This episode was just really great overall. I'm really enjoying just the simple banter. Arata, I love how playful he is. There's so many moments where he feels like a jokester, where he's kind of flirtatious. Or one of my favorite points, honestly, of Psycho Pass 3 today is when we know, basically the crew, they looked into Arata and Kei's files, right? And he's like getting out of the car saying, didn't you read that in my file? And they're like, we never read that. And then he just kind of smiles and skips away like a little prankster. The man is so cool, calm, and collected, such a pleasant and very happy character to be around. But obviously he's a very tortured soul. Even when he's not using his mentalist ability, it feels like it's always active in some capacity, which is why I think it's going to be very important by probably episode 7 or 8, where the Fox storyline really goes and spirals out of control, because it's kind of insane that they are so perfect that you can't even read into who they are. You just see these fox heads. Like, that's how strong their hue is basically being controlled. Which is why I'm pretty sure that Arta can't actually zone in completely in what a face looks like, because they have such control and such malicious intent or something like that, and it just becomes insanely wild. I really don't know where this storyline is going to conclude or how it's going to go, because yes, it's looking like most likely a lot of these religious organizations are in it together, at least the sister for sure, but what are they gonna do? Because they're run by a system that is basically technology saying, do you punish, do you let them go? They scan their minds and they have like 2016 crime coefficient, like there's nothing there that can be done. Sure, you could use your own physical enforcement, but wouldn't that cloud your own hue, right? This is what's kind of wild and why I really like having Kei and Arta, because they don't put blind trust in the Sybil system. They believe in the system, but they won't just say, if the Dominator says to kill, we know we can take them out, not risk our own life, not risk the life of others, and just tackle them, beat them up, and then place them into custody, and maybe an hour later, they won't get a lethal kill reading, right? This season of Psycho Pass is just wild. Like, just so much happening. There's so many fan favorite returning characters, but at the end of the day, it doesn't feel almost like a sequel. In a lot of ways, it feels like a new entry to Psycho Pass that people could just watch season 3 and have a blast with. I'm watching it with someone and they've only seen these seasons of anime and not the movies, but I still feel like you could just throw someone with Psycho Pass 3 and they're going to want to binge the remainder of the franchise, because that's how good it is. I really, really hope that just the payoff of whatever is Kei and Arta's storyline, right? They're all hunting down something, right? And it feels like they're really setting it up that once the secret is revealed, they may have a falling out. As Kei's wife says, whatever happens, whatever is revealed, we can't break apart, right? They live in a world right now that, even though it's kind of seeming like it's being progressive, it's still in a state where a lot of things aren't accepted or widely accepted by the masses, as seen by the protests and things like that. I'm just really interested of where the punchline actually wants to go, because we're building up with the Fox storyline that's clearly going to relate to Kei and Arta's storyline as well, but where do they want to go by the end of this? Because we're building one large conspiracy that's divided into 3 or 4 movie-like stories. But what's the punchline? I don't know, but I'm fully confident that whatever it is, it's going to be exhilarating in some capacity, as seen by the past 5 episodes, all really hooking me. And honestly, it feels like each episode has been getting progressively better. I would say this week is tied with last week in terms of quality. I don't think episode 5 like jumped in quality, but I do think it mirrored what we saw with last week's episode, which was incredible. And as long as they can continue to keep us at least episode 2 or 3 quality-wise, I think this season as a whole will be, honestly, anime of the season contender for a lot of people, and it's definitely my second favorite new anime of the fall season for sure. I definitely kind of have hummed and hawed of how much Psycho-Pass I want to see in the anime world. Season 1, especially with the 2015 movie, I felt very satisfied with the story overall, but I knew there was a lot of potential with the world. And seeing what Season 3 has done so far, unless Sybil completely crashes and burns, I feel like even if we can't have more K and R to story based on however the season ends, or maybe we can have more, which would be an added bonus, as I'd love to see another 12 episodes of these boys, because they're just so fantastic. I still feel like there's just so many stories that you can tell with this system, and it's only going to get crazier and more wild the more we watch. Another great episode, I have to say. Really excited to see where episode 6 is going to go next week. But what did everyone think? Your favorite moment? Where do you think this conspiracy is going to go? Whatever you feel, do let me know down in the comment section below. And if you did enjoy this video, be sure to drop a like. And remember to hit that subscribe button if you have been new. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.